What's up, this brother Ali, chilling on my favorite hip hop show, my favorite hip hop anything right now. Everything that's right about rap is right here, Dead End Hip Hop.
What's good, man? You know Dead End Hip Hop, what?
Yeah. The first video that I saw, I think it was when Evidence's album came out, because Sadiq, like the president of Rhymesayers, found it somehow, and he emailed it to everybody in the company.
Oh man!
It was like best review we've ever had for anything. Like, you know what I mean? And I mean there was like, you know how you have like a group email and then you do reply all? Like we do that at Rhymesayers for everything. So every time there's an email, there's like a long chain of everybody, you know. And I feel like that email with y'all's review of Cats and Dogs was like, it went on for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
The Cats is adding extra things. And,
that's amazing.
So after that, I went back and I started watching all the ones before that, and I think I've watched everyone since. I subscribed to y'all YouTube channel.
That is crazy. That is too crazy.
Yeah. So you know how like when you subscribe to stuff and you sign on, and so they posted a new one, it'd be like, oh word. But like I said, I don't see very well. Okay. So a lot of times I meet people, and I remember conversations a lot more than I relate to people visually.
Yeah, that's what's good, man. So so you keep going back and watching it, man. What you like about it?
You have a variety of opinions. You know what I'm saying? Like different guys like things for different reasons, and it's just very it's a very kind of like universal opinion of hip hop. Most people's opinion of hip hop is very narrow, that they like the little lane that they like, and that's true for everybody. That's true for, like, you know, there are not many people that would know my record came out and also the Nas, or you know, or also you know, the Rick Ross, and I have an intelligent conversation about both of them. And it feels like being in a barber shop, but you know, there's no asshole there. Like you know, like most barber shops, like you get in there and you start talking and they be like, you know, you hear the new Joel Ortiz? Oh man, what y'all over there talking about that bullshit? You know what I mean? Like, there's always somebody in there that's like, man, he ain't got no bitches and that motherfucker ain't got no car. You know? It's like, man, there's always one person that ruins those conversations. But you all get to just go. You don't, you know, they're not limited. Right. It's just like a real conversation about music. It's dope. And it just, you can tell how much you guys genuinely love and are excited about the fact that people make rap. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so few people that are just happy about anything and excited about anything. Excitement is like so rare to see ever about anything.
How was that, man, with Cornell West? I've read his books, man. I really admire him, man. He's definitely a bright guy.
We just hung out the one time. Yeah. We've corresponded since then. Okay. But we just hung out that one time. Actually, we're speaking together in New York next week. Okay. But it was amazing. Like, I saved the space on the album for him because he was such a big influence on my thinking when I was like becoming more political, and like I read, like the year that I talk about on a song called Stop the Press, when my dad died and Idea died, and it was like me and my wife almost split up. I toured 10 months out of the year. My DJ quit, so I hired this young dude I knew, and then he kind of disappeared on me, and just like it was just a rough year. And because of my vision, I can't really read normal speed, like normal size or normal speed or whatever. And my wife had just got me a Kindle, and the first book I got on there was Cornell West's memoir, like his autobiography thing. And so it just like explosion went off in my head, you know what I mean? And I started wanting to read all of these other things. Like, you know, I grew up, I never really was formally educated. Like, I went to school, but I didn't do school. Like, I just didn't do it. Like, I was there, but it was all just suggestions to me. So I'm all like everything I know is from like self-study. But the only things that I ever studied was like one subject. Like, I studied Black history, and that's it. So I know it, you know, I know that subject pretty all right, but anything outside of that, I just never thought it was for me. And so when he started talking about like Nietzsche and how Nietzsche relates to Malcolm X and how Plato relates to Dr. King, like all these things, I was like, man, I should read those. But I never even thought that I could read those things. You know what I'm saying? And so many of his little Westisms are on my album, like sprinkled in here and there. And so I wanted to at least play him the album before I put it out, so I could get his blessing, and then hopefully record it. So I have 3 mutual friends, probably way more than that, but I know Chuck D knows him, I know Immortal Technique knows him, and I know Rhymefest knows him. So I reached out through all of them, and they finally got me to his assistant, who was a lovely woman, and I got on the phone with her finally, and she said, you know, I basically was like, hey, I'm a rapper, and I love Dr. West, I want to have him on my album, I want to talk to him, and she was like, that's cool, that's really nice, but he gets hundreds of these. So I can't, and he's a very busy man, I can't promise you anything, but send me an email. So I'm like, all right, I know that Dr. West doesn't use computers. I'm sending you an email and you're already telling me to beat it, you know what I mean? But I'm like, fuck it, I have this thing where like, if something doesn't work, it's not gonna be because I didn't do everything I could. So I'm like, all right, so I wrote the email, poured my heart out, put links to everything. It was kind of a long email, it was like a full page. And printed it out, or emailed it. And the next day, I'm hanging out. So now they gonna sound check. Next day at breakfast, I'm sitting there talking to my wife and I'm like, I did everything I could. And she's like giving me other voices because I saved a literal space, like I saved 30 seconds for Doc to talk. And she's giving me other ideas. She's like, well, you know the dude from The Last Poets, you could ask him. I'm like, that's a great idea, actually. And then there's an elder in our community that's very similar to him. His name is Mahmoud El-Kati. I'm like, well, maybe I could ask him. And while we're talking about that, I hear the phone in my office ring. And I was like, hold on, that's Dr. West, I'll be right back. Went downstairs, didn't even look at it. Hello? I already knew it. I was like, well, you know how you just know stuff? I picked it up. Hello? Ah, my dear brother. This is Cornell West. How you doing there, brother? You staying strong? You staying strong there, brother? And I was like, hold on. I composed myself and I'm like, Doc, thank you for calling me. He's like, oh, towering artist of your integrity, greatness, and your lyrical genius. So I'm so deeply, you know, touched and humbled that you would reach out to me there, bro. You know about my work, though, brother. I'm like, man, you're my favorite person on earth, man. And man, so then there was a guy named James Cone, Dr. James Cone, who invented Black liberation theology, which is like, that's the school of thought that Jeremiah Wright and them ran. It's like it started in the 70s or 70s, but it's a new approach to Christianity, basically, or not even new. It's a redefining of Christianity based on the Black Christian tradition and the Black Christian church. And he just wrote his masterpiece work called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. How the cross and the lynching tree are the same thing. That, you know, and that how the American Christian community was silent, you know, during all those years of slavery and lynching and all, you know, American apartheid and all that stuff. So they had this dialogue. So he's like, you just come with us. You can be the Muslim voice. And I mean, these are two like amazing scholars, and I haven't slept. And I'm like, man, I better just listen, Doc. He was like, no, brother. I said, man, I didn't even go to, I told him I didn't even graduate high school, man. I didn't go to college. He said, you didn't go through college, brother Ali, but a college went through you. I was like, oh, man. It was amazing, man. It was amazing. And then after that, we went out for dinner. And yeah, so what was supposed to be an hour ended up being like 11 in the morning till midnight.
Wow, full day, man.
That's crazy.
It was dope, man.
While we're talking about people on the album, how did you get Amir Sulaiman? He's one of my favorite poets, period, hands down. Like, I saw him maybe 2 or 3 years ago. He performed at a coffee shop, like right down the street from my house. And he blew me away. And I still think the Meccan openings is one of the best things to come out in 2011. So when I saw him on your album, I was like, wow, that's cool as hell. Like, how did you get him on there?
Me and Amir met, actually, he interviewed me for a magazine when he was living in the Bay. And that's how we met. And we did the interview, real similar to Dr. West. He's like, you know, supposed to, it showed up on my schedule as like a 15-minute interview. And we ended up talking for 2 hours. Right. Easily, no problem, you know what I mean? Right. Like we both were like, I gotta get off the phone, but one more point. Blah, 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 blah. He'd be like, I gotta go, but just one more thing. You know what I'm saying? And then we became like really just great friends. You know what I'm saying? He's the only dude I've met all of my heroes now except for maybe one or two, and he's the only person that I don't even think intimidated or scared is the word, but like I'm just in awe. Like when he's around, he's just like it's pure power. You know what I'm saying? Like he definitely has like. It's amazing. Like he's just one of those people that like when he's around I just feel like standing down. I'm an alpha male, you know what I mean? I'm a Leo, I'm you know, but when he's around I stand down. I don't know why, it's just natural.
He has that
you know,
energy.
He does. Definitely. His name is Amir, and that means like leader. That means like president, jefe, presidente, like, and that's who he is. Whoever his parents named him the right thing, man. He's crazy.
So like working with pretty much for all your previous projects, working with producer Ant from Atmosphere, how was it different working with Jake One? Because I heard you spaz out on that Three Kings instrumental right before the album dropped. I'm like, wow. So how was it working with Jake One and you know going over his beats and in a different mind state? You know, is it different than you know working from Ant and Jake One?
It's crazy because they're a lot alike. They're alike in so many ways and they're opposites in so many ways. You know what I mean? They're alike in the sense that they're just very, very extremely honest to the point where every now and then it's like, ouch. You know what I mean? But they're like so real. I would say music-wise, Ant uses the music, like the instruments, to create what he's trying to do. Like Ant is like really, you know, the strings and guitars and like that's what creates the thing with him. He makes the music and then he does the drums along with it. Jake makes the drums first. Like Jake is drum based. And so he makes the drums and then he finds music for it. It's the complete opposite in that sense.
One thing I've noticed over the past couple of albums is there's a slight pullback in aggression. Like, and this might sound weird, but you seem a little smoother, like a little more laid back, relaxed on your rhymes, with the exception of a few tracks, obviously, like Murder, you know. But was that a conscious thing, or is that just kind of a part of being a musician and being in the game for so long and just being a grown man and just getting older? Did you consciously say, you know, I don't want to do the aggressive stuff so much, I want to pull back a little bit?
I think it was more so just my life, like my music is like, I don't sit and like think my music out that much. I think about when I'm writing it, but then I'm just trying to think about like, okay, I feel this way, how do I describe what I'm feeling right now? I don't think about like, I need to make an album that sounds like this, or I need more music like this, and more music. I think people that make music like that, that's where they go wrong. We're so wrong, you know what I mean? Like there are people that we all look up to as heroes, and when they try to calculate stuff, like you could tell when Jay-Z is calculating something. Like Justify My Thug, you know what I mean? It's like we're gonna give Madonna, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do, his verses are still great, but then Madonna doesn't come through. And then you just got this song, this head scratching ass song. It's like these verses are still dope, man, but god damn, really? You know, or you could tell when he's trying to get a hit. You know, I feel like with Nas, you can tell when it's calculated. Like these men are geniuses, but when they think too much about it, I think that's their words. Those are their least tight things. You know what I mean? When I made my first music, like I was just broke, man, living in the hood, albino dude, walking around. I used to fight a lot. I went through a period where I was fighting a lot, you know what I mean? Because my thing is like, I'm legally blind, so if I get in a fight, it's not fair. Like I'm kind of big, but that doesn't mean anything. It's my worst times in my clock ever been claimed by small dudes. Little dudes. So I'm extra cautious fighting little dudes because I'm like, man, this guy, he already knows. So he's like, it's way more serious to him than it is to me. So Ant, when I started hanging out with Ant, he was like, how old are you? You still fight? You still
right. Right.
And I'm like, man, I gotta let people know, man. People mess with me and blah, blah. He's like, you're never gonna see those people again. He's like, it's not like prison or school. You know what I'm saying? It's not like the joint where like, it's the same 100 people every day. So if you only gotta knock one person out and then nobody fucks with you, he's like, you knock that person out and then you're gonna go back in the world with 1 million other people that never seen you. So he's gonna knock people out the rest of your life? I'm like, oh man, yeah, That's a good point. And he's like, yeah, He's like, man, what's all this praying about if you're still knocking people out?
That's a good point.
That's the kind of friends you need in your life.
Right, straight up.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people you need, man. Most of the people would just be like, I respect that brother. Somebody can make him. Do you know what I'm saying? I respect that brother. But Ant's like, what's all this praying and shit? Fuck's all this fucking praying and shit. Nah, what's all this Allah shit? That's how Ant talks. What's all this Allah shit? And he's gonna get in fights. I'm like, man, I can't say you're wrong.
Yeah, actually, I did. I talked to Slug a couple days ago. He said to give you a hug, say what's up. But, you know, actually, I'll ask you one of the questions I asked him. I actually asked him for being one of those artists that can cover so many different topics, from, you know, love to heartbreak and alcoholism and all that kind of stuff. I never really heard the term emo rap get thrown at him, but he actually broke it down how he's invented that whole term. Like he threw that out there as a joke, and somebody ran with it, and it turned into its own thing. You're kind of in that same lane. Like when you were doing Shadows on the Sun, you know, that was not a very traditional subject matter type of hip hop album. Now, how come you kind of avoided that term? Like no one really throws you into that category either, because you're not your average rapper. You'll talk about things that, you know, most rappers won't talk about, getting your ass whooped, you know, or Forrest Whitaker, you know. So how do you feel about that?
I don't know. I think it's funny because Slug and Sage Francis, they both did that around the same time.
Right.
Sage tells the exact same story, but he talks about how he invented the term emo rap. And same way. They had the exact same story.
That's funny.
And I'm saying it's, you know, I think that was one of those things that was like, it was kind of an obvious joke.
Yeah.
It's like, man, how many people have called me Santa Claus in my life? You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man, that's obvious. And Sage, on the other hand, when I was battling Sage, he said I had the Michael Jackson disease. Like, that's a new one. I appreciate that. But yeah, like you know, that term, that was like when emo rock was really big. And so it was an obvious joke for them to use.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question? I'm gonna leave you alone. I promise. Okay, so I've always loved you and Slug's chemistry together, like when y'all are on tracks. And are we gonna get another, you know, a Cats Band Bags or another blah 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 or something like that? Cause y'all too, when y'all go back and forth, it's just, I don't know. It's just like heavenly ping pong. It's like Buddha and Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Buddha and Jesus. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh man.
Buddha and Jesus.
I mean, you can pick whichever one you want to be.
I'd rather be Buddha. It didn't so good. Man, that's tight. I think, yeah, definitely. The thing is that me and Slug are like, it's funny, we're like such good friends. Like Slug is really just so generous with everything. He's generous with what he knows, generous with what he has. He's always been that way. When I first started coming around Rhymesayers, I had just gone through something terrible, man. It's terrible, like traumatic thing, and I was stuck, and I didn't have a way, like, you know, literally that day. And me and him were talking, and I was just like, man, like he was like, man, I had a bad day, man. This is like way before the albums came out and all that stuff. He was working at a record store, and I'm like, what happened? He's like, man, I just sold some of my records, like his personal out of his collection. Just sold some records for walking around money. And I'm like, man, yeah, I just had this terrible thing with whatever. And I was staying way out in the suburbs at the time. There was like no more buses or whatever. And I'm like, man, so I don't know, man. I'm thinking about crashing at the store or whatever. And he took the $20 out of his pocket and was like, here, take a cab home with the money they just got from selling the records. And I was like, I can't take that. He was like, please. It's the only thing that can make today make sense.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I know that was probably his like food and cigarettes money for 3 days or something. He was like, it's the only thing that make today make sense. And that's who he is at his core. You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't let me not tell you. He was like, please. You know what I mean? Give me cat fare. That's a small story, but that's who he is. Like I knew him before. Some people think that you know, think that he's generous now because he's got something to be generous with. But even when he had nothing, he was always been like that, man. Yeah. And so I'm just forever in his debt, man. For not even debt. It's not even debt. It's not even a debt. It's just a gratitude thing, man. It's a brother thing. You know what I mean? Like he really, at no point has he done a molecule less than what he could to help me in any way. You know what I mean? He's just always there. It's like anytime, you know. It's weird. I won't talk to him for 6 months, and then I'll have something on my mind that's bothering me, and he'll just call me out of nowhere, and I'll be like, oh, I was supposed to ask you about this. What do I do about so-and-so? And he'll give me that thing that just set me right, you know what I mean? And, but we do have a competition on the mic.
Yeah, that's obvious.
Yeah.
And it's truly friendly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's truly like, okay, I think you're going this way, and you're gonna get your shit over here, I'm getting my shit over here. You know what I mean? It's tight, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's been too long. We always talked about making an album together.
Oh wow.
But
yeah, do that. Please do that. That would be crazy.
new album is Morning in America, Dreaming in Color, produced entirely by Jake One. Guests on there are Dr. Cornell West, absolutely. Amir Sulaiman, Chocolate, a Tone Treasure. I have a little bit of her voice on there as well. Bun B let me use his voice on there, which was really dope. Yeah, it's in stores right now. Go check it out.
Tell you how much we appreciate this.
Oh man,
Lovely.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm your brother.
It's the same thing. I've been watching you guys for a year now.
Yeah.
And here we are. I had no idea we were doing this.
You just said it though.
Yeah.